Yeah, man, once you start doing this stuff, it's just like you get excited because you're building features for yourself that, like, probably the developer's not going to do it.
That's Raphael Sepulveda, a producer, composer, mixer, and workflow automations master. Raphael writes music for television and ads, as well as produces records, and contributes heavily to the Soundflow community, helping people script and design automations for themselves. Today, we're going to go deep on the advanced automations that he uses every day.
Once I implement it into my workflow, it will be amazing. It will be like, man, this is actually making I can work faster and I can build more for less work.
We also get into a lot of Pro Tools specific workflows for track presets and templates.
That's where track presets and templates come in handy. Like, it gives you...
And we touch on how he got into writing music for sync and why it's so different from making records.
One thing that I learned pretty quickly, once you start landing these, you see your work in real life, it's just like they push your music way down.
My inner automations nerd has been building scripts nonstop since we had this chat, so if you've been thinking about taking the dive into Soundflow or just learning to code your own scripts, definitely stick around for my interview with Raphael Sepulveda. So I've been excited to chat with you because we met at NAMM. At this point, it was like almost 2 years ago. And I'm in the midst of kind of like working through my, end of the year systems tweaks. And I'm like, I know that you're going to have some tricks for me. So,
oh yeah,
I wanted to just get straight into nerd and ask, do you have a top 3 Pro Tools workflow or automation things that you've put together?
Absolutely. I mean, I have so many. I can give you more than 3.
Make it 5 if you want.
But the first one that comes into mind is the stuff that I have for my subgroups. So the way that I work, like a lot of people, I have a bunch of subgroups at the end of my session, just auxes for the drums, guitars, and whatnot. And I like to have all those colored a certain way. One of the macros that I use all the time, and I have them right here on my iPad. I have most of the groups that I would use on a session laid out, and I just need to select the tracks that I want, and I hit a button. It will color it. It will look through the session. If it doesn't have an aux to go to, it will go create one and then route to it and have it pretty much laid out for me. And that one is just, I just do it all the time. I have like maybe 16 of them right here.
That's awesome.
So that one I use all the time. The other one that I use all of the time is duplicating. And now, this pain, being a Pro Tools user, we have to duplicate a track. It involves several steps.
Oh, yeah.
Usually if you're on Ableton or Logic, you hit the shortcut and it just creates a new track and that's it. With Pro Tools, one of the things that we love about it is that it gives you options, but when you're in the flow of things, you kind of want to just get it going. So, the first thing that comes up is the little window saying, oh, what do you want to duplicate? Do you want the clips? Do you want the automation? Do you want this and that? How many do you want? Most of the time, I want the same thing. I just want the same track with no clips so that I can usually record something else, like a guitar. I just want to do another pass. So I go through those options, have it there, and then the next pain point is the name. I just want it to be, if it's guitar 1, I want it to be guitar 2. I don't want it to be guitar 1.dupe1.
Yeah, that's right.
So I have a macro that takes care of all that. It will do the duplicate. It will deal with that window, set it up the way that I like it, which is just, have the track. It will wait for it to come up, and once it's there, it will change the name to guitar 2 or guitar 3. It will go through the whole session and be able to tell how many guitars are, or whatever the main name is, and give it a number that makes sense.
That's
so
amazing.
That one is just like, man.
That's amazing.
Yeah, man, once you start doing this stuff, it's just like you get excited because you're building features for yourself that, probably the developer is not going to do it. It's probably too customized for yourself. There's no way that this is going to happen. So you just do it. It's like, okay, this is actually awesome for me. And I guess, let's see. I mean, I'll just mention another one of my favorites. It's the reverse reverb trick. That's the classic we all do.
Yep.
But it also involves several steps. Well, I have it so that I just need to select, and I usually do this with vocals, to come into a verse and whatnot. I just select where I want the reverse to start, and then I include some of the vocal, like usually the first word. I hit the keyboard shortcut, and it will just go through all the motions to make that happen. And like that, it usually it is more complex with a mono source, which is usually the case of vocals, because the reverb you want it to be stereo.
Right.
So usually what that involves is duplicating that vocal track twice, so you have two of them, then grabbing the piece of audio that you want, bring it down twice, then creating a stereo track, bringing those two down, so it's basically a stereo file of the mono file. Then go into Audio Suite, choosing your reverb of choice and setting it up the way that you want it. And then with Pro Tools, it has at the bottom of the Audio Suite window, it has a reverb option. So you hit that, and it will finally get it there. And then you have to clean up, delete all the tracks that you created, and then rename it. All that.
The worst.
Done.
The worst.
With this automation trick, and it's just so awesome to just. It kind of makes me want to do it more, even though it's at this point it's a little overplayed. Let's be honest. But when you need it, it's like, oh, I can just do it real quick. Just press the keyboard shortcut. All the stuff that I just said, boom, it gets done, and it's perfect. And I have it so that as soon as it's done, it plays back what it did. Because usually I want to see, maybe I want it a little bit longer, so I make the selection longer, and I just read the whole thing.
That's awesome. I'm kind of old school because I never use the reverse reverb button in the Audio Suite. Does that Audio Suite the reverb and reverse the reverb, or does it reverse the vocal, print reverb, and then reverse the reverb?
Right. So basically, it will print the reverb
and
reverse it. Right. And basically, you have the effect, right? Just the standard reverse reverb right there. So that if it didn't have that, then the automation flow would have been way longer. But thankfully, they helped us out with that one.
Yeah, that was when I first got Keyboard Maestro years ago. That was like the first thing I built was a reverse reverb, but I didn't use the reverse button. So I had to like Audio Suite the reverb, then open reverse, and then have that selection, and then you reverse that. And I built that, and I was like, this is amazing. And then I never bought Keyboard Maestro. I just like used that as a proof of concept, and then just like moved on and just forgot that I was, doing that. But it's those little things. It's like people don't think about how much time you save incrementally, because we're talking about saving 2 seconds. But you're talking about saving like 2 seconds 10 times a day, 30 times a day. And then you start building all these automations, and you're just like, then you start saving minutes and hours. And then at the end of the year, you're like, I just got like an extra week to do something else. You know what I mean? Which is, I don't know. That's huge for me because I've got a kid now. I don't know if you've family.
Oh, yes. Well, I do have a son, and I'll be pleased to inform you that we've been sick for the past 4 months. He's almost 1 year old, so and he started daycare recently. So as you know, it's we're going through that right now. But yes, it's those, it might seem marginal, like that. It just saves you a little bit of time, but they do add up.
Yeah.
But there's more benefits to that. I mean, there's workflows that are way longer, and we can talk about that in a bit. And I don't know about you, but whenever I finish melodyning, my wrist hurts. And if I have to do even more stuff in addition to that, these workflows, they help you with your just physical, stamina. It's just less clicking around, and
So
with Pro
true.
Tools, you feel it. I mean, you have to get to the one thing, like I described earlier, you have to do a bunch of other things. So it really makes you a little bit lazy. I'll tell you that much. I've been using these systems for 4 years now, and there's just no way. I cannot go back. And the same, I was just talking to my friend right now. It's like, man. Soundflow wasn't, it was acting up. It's like, just restart it, it'll be fine. But yeah, he was just explaining to me, he's like, man, I cannot work without this. It's just, I need this.
I did a record recently, and I was using Bounce Factory, Andrew Ship's Bounce Factory, which is an amazing Soundflow based product that is like built so overkill. Like he's like, it can do anything. but I was having a problem with heat, and I never really was able to. I didn't have time to like really get onto the Soundflow forum and like work through it. And so any session that the producer had sent me that had heat on, I'd left it on, did my mix, and none of those I could get Sheps to bounce. And I was doing Atmos stems, so I was bouncing so many stems, and I was sitting there like basically crying because I haven't sat there and actually printed stems for like 2 years or whenever Bounce Factory came out, I just like have never sat in front of my computer and had to do that again until this moment a couple months ago. And I was like, just breaking down. I was like, I should pay somebody to do this. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, man. It's just impossible, like it's with stems, having the machine do that kind of stuff is just the best case scenario.
Oh, yeah.
If you have it laid out in a way that, is bulletproof, like, the tracks are going to print the way that you want them.
Yep.
Stuff like labeling. I mean, when I started this, my pain point was I started doing this composing stuff that I've been doing for the past 3 years. And one of the things is printing a ton of stems and a ton of alts. And the format of the names are pretty long. I mean, when they come to me, or whenever I'm prepping, mixing a track from another composer or my stuff, the name is temporary. Usually we assign it a number, and then it has the type of how long the track is. We have 60 seconds, 30, 120, which is 2 minutes.
Yeah.
We have several lengths. And then we have, what type of track it is, this is for the stems, typical stuff. And then you have to put the VPM, the key of the song, all that stuff in every stem. And I was typing them manually. And, we're humans. We are going to make mistakes. I was making mistakes left and right, with the tempo, just my finger will slip a little bit. It's like, oh, there's no way this is 200 BPM. I screwed up.
It ain't 20 either, so I don't know.
So whenever you set up your automation to handle that stuff, it's just, like I haven't had any mistakes for years.
Yeah.
Like at first, obviously you have to finesse your coding and make sure that it works in all kinds of situations. But I'll say that is one of my other favorite ones. Just having the ability to print stems and have them be awesome all the time. I did my script before Andrew worked on his. So mine is more specific to my workflow. I do still like to print the main pass on an audio track.
Okay.
And then I do bounce the stems because that will take too long. I don't really QC. It's not part of my job to QC the stems. We have somebody else to do that. But I do QC the main pass and the alts.
Yeah.
And I've always found like I haven't had any type of trouble whenever you print the audio on the session itself. While with bouncing, I remember there have been some hiccups especially with effects like reverb and stuff. It rarely happens, but back in the day, I remember being burned a little bit because there was an artifact in the session that even if you're listening to it while it is bouncing, the resulting file will have the glitch.
Yeah.
So I have that going on. All the information from the session is printed on the audio file, which is awesome. It'll grab like I said before, the BPM. It'll grab the key. The key, I do type it in at first whenever I set up the session. I listen to the song and then figure out the key, and then that way the script can read it off the file.
That's cool.
And then it will know, depending on what track I have highlighted, what stem we're talking about. And once it does all that, it will go in. Usually they land in the bounce files folder. And with stems, when you do the bounce to track, it'll add a -st. We don't want that.
Right.
So go get rid of that. And then it will move all the files from the bounced files into its proper place where it needs to live. And that, man, is just invaluable.
Yeah.
And there we're talking about saving several minutes at that point.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're also talking about saving the kind of thing that a lot of people pay an assistant for. Like you get down to like stem
Yes.
printing, so you can pay somebody to build you a script, or you can subscribe to one of these scripts that exist, or you could pay somebody hourly for 8 hours on a Saturday and a Sunday, and that's going to be a lot more expensive than building something yourself or subscribing to Soundflow or whatever you want to do. Yeah, it's like it's taking work away from people, but it's
I
freeing though.
mean, that's where we're heading, you know. Like even if I had an assistant, I would hook him up with Soundflow so that no time is wasted, so that the
Yeah,
whole machine is moving forward.
yeah,
I don't think it's about taking work from anybody. It's just like we just need to keep moving forward.
that's true. That's a
And
great way to think about it. It's a great way to think about it.
it's like,
Yeah.
come on, we have the power. Why would I force you to do the thing manually?
Well, let's talk about naming for a second, because you mentioned that was like a pain point for you. Because I recently it was a full album project, and the label wanted a very specific naming for each type of file. And luckily I have a very specific naming, so I was able to get like a batch rename process where I could swap out the words that I use for the words that they want. And it was still time consuming, but how do you name a mix right now? Like what's your naming convention?
A few years ago, I adapted the Grammy specifications. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's a document flying around back in the
Yeah.
day
Yeah.
with how it's supposed to be. I don't remember it because I have Soundflow to do it for me, but let me try. I know it was the initials of the artist,
Okay.
and then underscore the name of the song, underscore what is if it's a mix, a master, and then underscore the revision, a Rev 1, Rev 2, Rev 3, then underscore 48K 24, something like that. I'm pretty sure that was 90% correct. But yeah, that's kind of like how I have it set up for artist stuff. We don't do for the composition stuff that I do. We use a different terminology that's more in house. But for artists and records, that's the way that I do it currently.
Nice, nice. For listeners, I just found the link to the PDF that he was describing. I'll put that in the show notes. I'm not going to read it back, but it'll
Right?
be
Is
easy
a
to find.
long one.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we've kind of talked about some of the things that you're up to, some of the things that are possible. Uh, How'd you end up going down the automation rabbit hole? Like, why did you decide to try to save this time? And more importantly, what are you doing with the time you saved?
Oh man, like that. Well, I know that in 2019, I was very curious to learn how to like do some programming. You know, something that kids nowadays they get it in school, and I felt like, man, like if I could just get my hands on something like that, like just get familiar with it. And I've always wanted to do a contact library, but whenever I try to go in and try to study the thing, it's not very user friendly, especially from somebody that does not know how to do any programming. It kind of like felt like I was missing the foundations, the very basics.
Yeah.
And I put it off for a while, but in 2019, I saw somebody using Keyboard Maestro, and they were flying. Like, oh my God. When I saw that video, I was like, what is going on? I thought I was decent at Pro Tools, but he was just doing things that I didn't even know were possible. Which now, it's crazy because we've gone way ahead of that in modern days. But what he was doing, which was basic stuff like going through the menu items in Pro Tools and like, for example, doing a keyboard shortcut and attaching it to something kind of like toggle the click name, so that you can see it or not.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But to me, it was like, wow, like, and you can just do it there. It's like, wow, that's pretty amazing. Um, so I got the bug from there, and it opened the world for me because I was like, wow, this is not just for Pro Tools. You can automate whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I still remember the first thing that they teach you how to do with Keyboard Maestro is just to open a folder on your computer. So you assign it, and I still use them to this day. It's just I have it so the F1, F2, and F3 are my top 3 projects that I'm working on at the moment. So whenever like my top 3 clients, So, okay, I'm gonna work on this guy today. Boom. F1 is usually the one that I'm working all the time. And it just shows up.
That's
Versus
amazing.
going in, opening a
That's
new
so good.
Finder window, going through all the client, all of this guy, and
So good.
as dumb as that might seem, just it is way easier to just hit one key and it shows up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that's how I started, and then it just got even more complicated and more complicated, and I just wanted more. Once you start, you get used to it. It's like, this whole thing about the macros is cool, but I kind of want to. Yeah, I was referring my mind to I want to like do some coding or some more like advanced stuff. Because the way
Yeah.
that Keyboard Maestro has it laid out is pretty user friendly. It's basically blocks of actions that you can drop in into a flow, and then once you hit run, it will go through all those processes, back to back, and it will get your result, whatever that may be. And then I discovered Soundflow, and that was a I was amazed, and I I remember I I got the trial. They have a 30-day trial. I got it on it, and this was early days, at least for me.
Yeah.
But things have changed dramatically since then. But it was early days, and I was like, man, this is cool. It's a little hard though. So I tried the trial. I there were so many commands, so many things you could do, and so I was going through it, and I was building um my first script, and then I was like, man, this is taking a while, and I was in the middle of like a big project, and I wanted to see if I could do something quickly. But it was obvious to me that this required a little more investment from my part. So I let the the trial expire, and then I got back. It's like, man, let me just roll with Keyboard Maestro for now. As clunky as it might seem at this point for me, I'm just gonna roll with that for now. Get through this project, and then after the Christmas break, I'm gonna go into this, and that's exactly what I did. After the Christmas break, I got into it. It was 2020, a new year.
Yeah.
We did not know what was coming, but I was like, okay, this is the year for me.
Yeah.
So I started getting into Soundflow and going down the rabbit hole of coding and scripting. So Soundflow uses JavaScript as the language of choice. And the cool thing about JavaScript is that it's a very well documented language, probably the most well documented language. And from my experience, trying to do some contact stuff, which is not I mean, I guess it is, but still harder.
Much harder.
With
Yeah.
JavaScript, you can find so many examples of things to do. So that's what I did. I went on YouTube, watched a bunch of videos, did a little course on my iPhone. It was called Mimo, just like a training thing. Very easy to do. And once I got that going, it's like, man, okay, this is cool. Start going through all the things that Soundflow has to offer, which is thousands. I mean, that was another thing. Like, man, just seeing what other people have done. It's like, wow, I just need to spend some time checking everybody's things out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I did that. I did a whole list. Every time I would see a name of something that sounded cool, I would put it there, and I would just make a point to try it out. And eventually I just started putting the pieces together. And the most important thing, and the thing that kept me going, was that once I implemented it into my workflow, it will be amazing. It will be like, man, this is actually making I can work faster, and I can build more for less work.
Yeah.
It's like, it's actually manifesting in real life versus when you're trying to learn something, usually it takes a while. Like, let's say whenever you're learning an instrument or something like that, it takes a while from going from zero to playing on stage or on the studio. It takes a few years.
Yeah.
Here, I was able to quickly implement what I wanted to do and try it out that same day
Yeah.
and see the benefits. And once it's there, I just have it, laid down on my Stream Deck and on my iPad or on my keyboard. I do all the different combinations, Um, so that once I caught that bug, I was like, man, this is cool, and it made me feel really good that I could learn a new skill, because Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. It saves so much time. One of the things I wanted to highlight, because maybe not we've mentioned Soundflow so many times, and everybody listening to this may not be familiar with what Soundflow is. And I'll let you give a rundown of that. But I think the two of the most powerful aspects of Soundflow is, one, everything's saved to the cloud. So if you go to another computer, you can pull your commands down, which is something that you couldn't get back in the day. Like when I was at Capitol, there was a few people that used quick keys, some of the film scoring guys, but I think you had to carry a USB stick around. You had to load your things on, assuming they had quick keys on the computer, and then the assistant had to remember to turn it off. And Soundflow, you can just log in, everything starts working. And the other one, the power is in making your own macros. Like, because I know friends that have tried Soundflow, and they're like, oh, and there's like a free version that comes with Pro Tools or something like that, I think now.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's basically just giving you control of the things that people already know. And that's the argument that a lot of some of my friends have had. Is like, well, I'm already super fast at Pro Tools. I'm like, dude, it's not about having save as on your Stream Deck. It's about building something deeper than that, Like, we all know the key commands. Like, if you work professionally, you're already very fast. This is to do this is to get into the dark arts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, like that's where you get the juice out of it, just making things that are a little more complicated. But, I can give you a lot of examples, even easy stuff that just helps me. But yeah, I guess we have to rewind and kind of talk more about Soundflow. I kind of just, assumed that. Well, Soundflow, to me, it is the best automation software that there is. I am biased because I am on Pro Tools, and the creator, Christian, he made it specifically for Pro Tools. Even though it can do a lot of things outside of Pro Tools, that was the main focus at the beginning.
yeah,
So that it will help engineers just work way faster on Pro Tools. And that is the biggest difference from something like Keyboard Maestro, for example. Keyboard Maestro is just, a tool for the Mac to help you automate. Soundflow has that, the aspect of Pro Tools and the audio community attached to it.
yes, yeah,
And one of the cool things that I really like about Soundflow, like you said, well, the cloud stuff. A lot of people, when they hear, oh, it's in the cloud, they get a little bit scared because the data, they want to have a backup. I'll admit I was part of that camp for a while, but we're in a new world, man. Like, in reality, I'll give you my own experience here. In the last 4 years, I've only lost internet connection twice. One time it was a week. I had a studio. Right, the studio I'm in right now is in my house. But in 2020, before the whole pandemic, I had a studio offsite, and we lost an internet in the building for a week. And what did I do? I just used my phone and gave the computer a hotspot on my phone, and it was completely fine. And even if you lose internet connection, it's not that you can't use Soundflow. You can use it on an offline mode, which means that you can use all your commands. You just can't edit them, so that it doesn't break the sync with the cloud. That's, forget about saving. You don't need to save in Soundflow because every move that you make gets synced to the cloud immediately.
Yeah.
And one of the other benefits of having that is that I just experienced it right now. I just changed from my trash can Mac Pro to the Mac Studio. Once I install Soundflow, all the keyboard commands just populate. I don't have to do anything else. Versus,
so
like
good.
the other stuff Pro Tools related, like your track presets, you have to make sure to go on the documents folder in the old computer, put them, make sure that you transfer them over. Anything that you put on Soundflow will automatically just take over on your new computer. And the same applies if you're at another studio. Like whenever I go tracking, all the custom keyboard shortcuts that I have just automatically populate. And I don't have to worry about, it's just like I'm working on my own workstation, which is super awesome.
It's been I hate to use the word game changer, but there's really no other way to describe it. If you're looking to save time or you have a lot of repetitive tasks, just like editing this podcast, there's like so many things that I have to do over and over and over again. Folder structures. Like you want to talk about like non-audio workflows. I'm sure you have some, but like I have buttons that create my Pro Tools session hierarchy and my podcast hierarchy. And I just press one button. It asks me the name of the song, type in the name of the song, a couple more things. Boom. There's Dropbox folders created. There's work drive folders created. Everything's named. I got tired of making those folders. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I have that same one that you have. Yes, yeah. That's just so easy.
I think you actually helped me on the forum with that. Because I was trying to use you have your utilities that'll create a Pro Tools session, which I ultimately never used, but I downloaded that and then I posted like, hey, how do I make this folder structure here, here, here? And then I think you jumped in because you're always on those forums helping people out, which
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's something that I want to tell everybody. If you're struggling with this kind of stuff, just get on the forum. Well, specifically with Soundflow, and I'm super down to help. That's something that I've been doing. I started doing this so that I could practice more of the scripting. And then eventually, like I do have a lot of answers that it takes time for other people to find. So I'll just, I'm more than willing to just help you because, I've been through that whole process. It can be frustrating. And I just think, if I could just, show you how to do it, then you can, sometimes if I see a user is actually, trying, is in a good path, I won't give away the whole answer. I will just point you in the right direction so that you have the tools to do whatever you want.
that's
Sometimes
good.
I can give you the whole script, but you don't know how to modify it.
Oh
And
yeah.
you're kind of stuck there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do, I love helping people on the forum.
The forum and the store, I think, they really bring so much added value to Soundflow because you can just scroll through and it's like, oh, I want to make a script for this. For example, I was thinking, I wonder if I can build something that'll replace my UAD plugins with UADX plugins. And then you go to the store and somebody's got one up there already. And it's called a store, but it's like 95% free
Yes.
applications.
Yes.
There's a small group of people that create paid applications that obviously have taken a long time to build. But yeah, it's invaluable. Do you have any, like, what's the craziest thing you've done? Maybe not even Pro Tools
Craziest?
related, like one of the hardest automations or pieces you've put together. It could be anything.
Well, yeah, it's definitely gonna be Pro Tools related, but yeah, that was the craziest one. Was the whole set deliverables script that I made for my composing work, and it's just I already touched on it with the whole bouncing and doing the stems, and that whole chunk it did take a long time to make, but then after that, there's an extra step once everything is bounced and ready and it's already where the files are where they're supposed to go, it handles the session and kind of finishes everything off for me. And what I mean with that is that it will save the session, then it will create a save as of it. Because I do provide for the composing stuff, I do provide like a simple session of everything. So I would need to clean that up. There's stuff that nobody needs to see. Like I have a whole monitor aux that I listen through. That it has my TC electronic, the Clary M loudness meter.
Yep.
It has the SonarWorks Sound ID. Stuff that if you put that on another computer, it's just not gonna work or it's gonna sound horrible. So I need to clean that up. So it creates a save as. It goes through. I usually delete all the comments. Comments for me are more technical, like if you're like the mic that you use or whatever. Once
Yeah,
for
agreed.
this, for my purposes, you don't need comments. So it deletes all the comments. It deletes any other extra tracks that were there just for well, that's another workflow that I use. I have an archive folder at the very top of my session, and there I chuck anything that I already committed and that I don't really need for, especially for virtual instruments, like one
Yeah.
of the workflows, it's just you do the part, you commit it, and then you have it as audio. So then I chug it into this archive folder, and I have it there in case I want to redo a part, whatever. Whenever I'm just done with the song, I don't need any of that. So it makes sure to delete that archive folder and anything that's in there.
That's good.
Um, and then once the session is clean, it'll go through the I/O. It'll hit the fault, because you don't want all those buzzes that go nowhere. Basically, the session is super good for anybody to open. And, like I am a little bit OCD with that kind of stuff. Yeah, I like to, if people are going to receive my session, it's going to be super clean and ready to go.
That's
Everything
impressive.
organized. So that script handles that. They'll go and then it will do the final step. And this is the one that's, it was tricky at first. Now it's simple, but it'll do a safe copy in. And the reason I do that is so that it flushes any audio files that are no longer existent in the session.
Right.
Because, like as you're working, you might trim a file. It'll still be there. Or you might even not get rid of the whole thing altogether. But the audio files folder still contains that audio.
Yeah.
I like to have the session just have the stuff that it needs, to play. And if you set up the save copy in window in a certain way, you can have that. It will just make sure that all the files that are in the session are the ones going into that other thing. And then once that session is created, it goes through the folder hierarchy that I have, just like you. I have a whole system going on. And there's pretty much set for another script that I have that is whenever I'm done and I want to actually deliver to the client, I select all the sessions and it will grab just the pieces out of that. I don't want them to have the whole hierarchy, just several parts, like this, the important stem. The stems, the mixes, that Pro Tools session, not the Pro Tools session that I worked in, because that's just a mess. It has all the creative stuff.
Yeah.
But that one I remember, it was when I was starting out, and it took me a long time, months, to perfect that.
Yeah. So that would basically, you'd have to have a really tight naming system for it to know if you select like 10 song folders. Yeah, you'd have to be very consistent for it to identify what it needs, right?
But since I created the sessions and everything is handled by scripts, it will always be perfect.
That's true.
The only thing it needs for me is the name of the song. Whatever. That's the one thing that I have to provide. Everything else is already preset by the scripts, and it just never messes up.
That's amazing. I'm definitely emailing you in a few weeks and asking you to build something for me. We've talked about a bunch of automation. There's probably like people that have completely fallen asleep. Let's talk about making music and composing.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know you left New York, you came to Nashville, you kind of transitioned into doing a lot more composition, and it seems like that worked out for you pretty quickly. And I think a lot of people really try to kick that door down for a long time. How did it work out for you that you started landing spots, fairly fast? Do you have any tips for people on how to get in the door?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I got lucky. The whole composing thing came about, through the pandemic. I was doing records before, and I still do now. Things are back to normal by the time we're shooting this. But yeah, whenever the whole COVID thing happened, I had a studio and just people couldn't come through. It just wasn't happening. So I needed to find other opportunities, and it just so happened that the company that I currently work with, Howlin' Music, they were looking for somebody like me. Initially as an engineer, basically to handle the library side.
Mm.
But also, like as things develop, it's like, hey, well, do you need tracks like this? I can give you tracks like this. So it kind of just worked out like that. And from my point of view of making records, I'm the kind of guy that the guy, like I am the band and the artist is usually just the vocalist. So I am used to making tracks from scratch. That is not, something I didn't really need to adjust anything with my workload with that. It was more about the getting used to the intention of the tracks. Like it's more about the spot
Yeah.
And one thing that I learned pretty quickly, once you start landing these, you see your work in real life, it's just like they push your music way down. It's like, man, I'm used to like having it loud and proud. And it's like, oh, in the background, you barely hear. So it's like, okay, so it's more about the groove, making sure that it fits the whatever it is. Having a lot of space for the VO.
That's true. That's
That's
true.
what's important. So I got used to that and just dealing with the clients, like just making sure that they get what they want. That was the adjustment and just
Yeah.
working through it. Working to picture, that was something that I didn't do before. But that came pretty natural to me. I mean, I just made it sound in a way that looks good too. Just making sure, sometimes, I try to hit every cut, with a beat, but that sometimes doesn't happen, and that's
Yeah.
okay. That's something that I had to learn as well.
Can we talk about that process for a second? Hitting all the cuts with a beat. I worked with a guy years ago, and we would always we'd throw picture up, and he would just kind of like strum a guitar, not even like really musically, and we would just try some tempos, and he would really pay attention to like where things were hitting before him and his writing partner would even like go open Logic in the other room and start writing. What's your process for trying to like, especially in ads, like you got to like land your sting in the right spot at the end? Are you like working backwards? Are you just trying different tempos? Is it moving? Like, how do you kind of hit those spots?
Well, it changes every time. I'll tell you the one from the last one that I landed. So basically, they provide a script, and there's some key points that need to happen. And at this point, there's no music. They just sent a some references, but there's nothing to look at. It's just there's some scribbles. Like it was just very bare. So what I do have it's gonna be, like, in this case it was 30 seconds. So I laid down on Pro Tools. I opened up the session and I put some markers where I think it could land. I kind of like spread them evenly apart. And then I know there was supposed to be a pause, and then at the end it needs to come in. So then I laid it down like that. It's like, okay. And I just start looking at the tempo and kind of like moving it up and down until I can get like a few, like, I try to do like 16 bars, something like that that makes sense musically, and I'll start there. Because I know if I get 16 bars, that is something that I can work with.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I grab the guitar or the piano and I just start strumming something. And then I just look as the timeline goes on. It's like, okay, here I can put that sync point that they want here, and then here. And then depending on the last one that I did, I just did it like that, and everything landed correctly. And like the tempos, the thing with things like that, like 30 seconds or 60 seconds, is that if you put it on 120 or something like that, a multiple of that, it will be perfectly, because that's
right.
It's by the second.
Yep.
So if you get it close to that, you will be guaranteed to land before the 30-second mark or 60 or whatever numero is.
Yeah.
So I did that, and it just it just happens. And then once we see the whole picture, there'll be adjustments to that. But then it doesn't really matter. Like they've already, in this case, they've already edited to your track that's already then, and then you just want several adjustments to that.
Yeah.
But in other cases, it involves tempo mapping, and that can get a little crazy. But once it's set up, you get it's there, and it's just kind of magical whenever it lands on with the picture. Even though the tempos are going left and right, like it's going crazy.
Yeah.
With the picture, it sounds completely fine.
It really does. The eye, whenever there's a visual, you get, I don't want to say tricked, but it's just, I don't know, a lot of things pass by that wouldn't pass by if you were just listening to music.
Yes. Yeah, so that's kind of how I handle that, and it's fun, man. Like it's just one of those things like I didn't do before. It's like, okay, this actually can work. With variable tempos, that's whenever you're tracking a band live, and that's pretty much the extent of that, or at least was for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a few people that'll like, bump a section up a BPM or something, but yeah, you don't really see a lot of deliberate tempo changes
Right.
in music. Just so you obviously work in Pro Tools for everything. A lot of composers, or I guess I should say heavy MIDI users, have hated Pro Tools for so long. I think they've solved all those problems. But were you ever frustrated with the way Pro Tools works in these composition settings?
Oh
Or
yeah. Oh yeah, man. It's been an ongoing, with Pro Tools, it's been a love-hate relationship for the majority of it. And, I've tried Logic, I've tried Ableton Live. Those are the two DAWs that I know the best after Pro Tools.
yeah,
But there's just something about Pro Tools. I mean, it is the DAW that I know the best. Something that I've learned is just the best tool for the job is the one that you know the best. It's
sure.
just, I know where everything is in Pro Tools. I know how to do, like even like the more intricate things, one of the things that we love about Pro Tools is that it gives you many options to do all kinds of different things. Like something very simple, like multi-mono stuff. Like I do so much multi-mono stuff, and you don't know that you miss it whenever it's just not there. Like what is multi-mono in Ableton Live? Nothing. That does not exist. So it's like, yeah, but all my compressors are multi-mono. That's just the way that I like it. And when it's not there, it's just like, man. But yeah, I'll just say that, Pro Tools has changed a lot since then. And it's just, in my frustration, I've tried to, like instead of like jumping ship and just going and getting Cubase or something like that. Right now, as of right now, Cubase and Logic are the top DAWs for scoring or for writing,
Yeah.
and Pro Tools I would say is the third. But instead of jumping ship, it's like, man, how can I get involved with these guys and kind of like let them know my frustrations and things that can be done better. I got lucky that for whatever reason they chose Nashville, Abbott did, to do what they called a ACA chapter. ACA is the Avid Customer Association, and they meet up, and they do these events, and they get together with the users and just
That's cool.
talk shop and get to know the people that make the software. And they came to Nashville in February of this year in 2023. And yeah, I went to the event and met all these guys, and they're cool people just, trying to make the best software that they can.
Yeah.
And, a lot of changes have happened since last year, since 2022. A lot of things are moving in there in the positive, very positive direction. And just talking with them, I got really excited. And as you can see in 2023, there's a lot of things coming they're even backtracking on things, like the pricing. They finally brought perpetual licenses back, which is, something that people wanted it.
Yeah.
That is a sign that times are definitely changing.
Yeah.
But in terms of the software itself, yeah. And now that I have it set up with Soundflow, there really isn't any better option. It's just impossible. I don't know about you, but I abuse track presets. That is one thing
Track
that
presets
has
is
changed my
huge.
whole workflow.
Huge.
Other DAWs have a version of that, but this one, you can import, because what a track preset is, it is a whole session, and you can just drag things from it.
Yeah.
Even tempo markers, like if you delete, the extension of track preset is PTXP or PTXT, I think it is. If you delete the last letter, it's just a normal Pro Tools session. And it will open like a normal session.
Can you add a P to a normal session?
I think so. I've never tried it that way, but yes,
Would make sense.
I think he would make it work. But that's what it is. And you have access to whatever you have in the session. Obviously, most people use it just to get the tracks that they saved. Um, so I have it set up, or my template is kind of like I use several different philosophies here, but the one that I've been using the most is having kind of like a basic template with all the things that I need. Like I have like what I call my master chain. Like my sub master, my regular subgroups, like the guitars, the drums, things that are always in 90% of the things that I do. They're
Yeah.
all laid down there. And instead of having like hundreds of tracks of different instruments and stuff, I just have here on my iPad all my favorite track presets for the instruments that I like. And when I need them, I just press the button and it will load that for me.
Nice.
And you kind of populate the session with the things that you need. And it happens so quickly because you just it's just one iPad push away.
Yeah.
And the thing with that is that my iPad started to get full. So I made another script that shows up a search, kind of like what you would see in Spotlight. And then you can
Right.
start typing and find whatever track preset that you want. It's basically searching through all your track presets.
That's
And
awesome.
and you can select what you want. Even I got into the practice of saving track presets after every project, just stuff that worked. Things that I'll probably not use for a while, but just this worked. It made it all the way to the end. This is something that I might want to use later on instead of rebuilding it
Yeah.
from scratch or from memory, or trying to find the session. I just have it there. I just put the name of it. I put in parentheses the name of the project. Something that might help me remember where it came from. And once you're working on something else years later, it's like, man, I kind of remember that. Let me see how that sounds here. You pop it in, it's like, man, it's already kind of mixed. Yeah, like it really helps with the workflow. And I just don't. I mean, that to me was a game changer, and I just don't think I can find something similar to that. And that's just one of the things. But that one is, very important to me
Yeah.
in terms of the way that I work now.
Well, yeah. Okay. There's two things you touched on. One, I wanted to talk about templates, but we'll come back to that. But track presets, it sounds like you're doing kind of a more advanced version of what I'm doing with the track presets, because I switched my whole mix template to basically run off of the track presets. So I pull all my busing and routing structure in, and then put the audio files at the top of the session. And then I've got my Stream Deck set up with instrument groups like drums, bass, guitar, whatever. So I'll click, say there's 3 kicks in this pop track. I'll select those 3 kicks. I'll go over, press kick, and that'll load a track preset. That'll move it into the kick aux, color code it, give it the groups, give it any plugins, whether they're active or inactive, that I like to use. And then it'll jump back up to the top of the session. I can select the snares and press snares. Boom, we cycle through the whole session, and mix prep's like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I love that you have
it's
that.
great. But so I wanted to ask you about templates, because I feel like the more like I cruise around the internet and like participate in TikTok and stuff, templates are getting this like bad rap. The people are just like want to sell you their vocal chain, and it's going to mix your record, and then it's making other people react like, don't use templates. I start from scratch every time. And I'm like, you guys all have templates wrong. Templates are like free creativity and let you work quick. It's not to do the work for you. It's to help you do the work. But I don't know what, so you kind of touched on your philosophy. How much processing is active in your templates versus ready to go, I guess is the question.
Well, I like to have it pretty much ready to go.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and the reason why it's controversial is, I think it's if you decide to just keep it as it is and it's not gelling with the track that you're working with, like that is where it's a problem.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if I put on something, like a chain that I did a while ago, I listened to it, it's like, doesn't sound right. I mean, it's there, but and then I start tweaking it, and then I start changing into whatever I want it to sound at the moment. But that is way easier than trying to rebuild it from scratch. And there's some chains, man, that I've gone crazy. With drums and stuff, we're always in the quest of not using samples and whatnot.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So you will see if you go through one of my sessions, you will see the attempts at doing some crazy thing that at the end of the day, you just put a sample, you would have saved so much time and it would sound pretty much the same. Um, but there's some good stuff that I would spend like an hour just, playing around. And I can just go through my thought process like, man, actually that sounded pretty cool. Let me just grab like half of it and then, take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where track presets and templates come in handy. Like it gives you a snapshot of where you were mentally at that point. It's just you have to make a deliberate effort, to change things and make it fit to whatever you're working.
True.
I just can't, the stuff that I do now, time is of the essence. I cannot start from scratch. There's just no money for any of that, luxury to spend a week tweaking one track. It just needs to happen immediately.
Yeah.
And that is where it comes in handy. You're more efficient. Things are laid out, in a particular way. And you just have to make an effort to change it up if it needs to. Or just, there are times in which you would do something from scratch. One of the things that I do for records, I do like to make one or two sounds that are specific for that track, that are signature to that track. And that's where I spend my time, making sure that something that's going to be on the spotlight, I'm going to make sure that has a signature sound. But then everything else, I have many great guitar sounds, many great drum sounds, it's just, I can mix and match them, and it has my thing that I've done throughout the years. So that's what I think about that.
I agree. I think there's the people when they're newer in their journey, they don't know that they're supposed to change the preset. And I think I'm actually going to make a pitch to all audio engineers and companies out there. I feel like if you're going to load presets into your plugins, which obviously you are, they should have an input gain marked, right? Especially if you're getting into like guitar stuff and you're going to record, like you probably plug your guitar in, your mic preset, you load your presets, it's expecting that gain.
All the gain staging is done, yeah.
Exactly. If somebody filled the meter up and loaded your guitar tone, it's going to be crazy distorted. And they're going to be like, this is horrible. And you're like, no, that's not how it was supposed to be used. So
there you go.
Just the absolute nerd in me. But before we go, I wanted to ask, your main instrument is guitar?
Yeah, that was the first instrument that I learned, yeah.
Are you a diehard amp or are you software? Are you like Kemper?
Software at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, most of my career I used Guitar Rig out of all things. And again, is the tool that that is the tool that I know I can get the sound out of it. It is CPU friendly, which is one of the battles, and you can recall it.
Yeah,
those are the things that are important to me. And at the end of the day, if it's a little better, if I mic up an amp or whatever, that's cool. But that is just in the world that I live in now. That is not something to worry about. It really is more about the part, the musical aspect of it. I mean, the tones are cool. They're gonna be cool regardless. If it's just 5% better, it's just that doesn't matter, in the world that I'm in right now.
Yeah, and so much is dictated by the fingers and the instrument. Like if you've got a great guitar and you're a great player, like I don't know. I think people that don't play guitar, I play guitar. They don't understand how much tone is in like a person's fingers. I've got buddies where they'll play their guitar and you're like, oh wow, that sounds amazing. My guitar doesn't sound like that. And then they'll grab your guitar and start playing and you're like, oh, okay, fuck, I understand. The problem's me. It's not him, it's me. Awesome, man. Dude, this has been a lot of fun. I would nerd for another hour, but I know you've got stuff to do. I've got to get back to a mix. But I've got two questions. I think you know what they are. So the first one, that I hit everybody with is, was there a time in your career that you chose to redefine what success meant to you?
Absolutely, man. And that was early on. I thought I was gonna be a touring musician with a famous band, like a successful band. I wanted
Yeah.
to be, I'm from, my scene was the early mid 2000s, My Chemical Romance, like Taking Back Sunday.
Nice.
I wanted to be in a band like that. And I wanted to be in a band like that by the age of 24, which kind of make things complicated. So quickly, as time was going on, I was making, progress towards that. But then,
Yeah.
I was approaching 24 and I saw that, I was still pushing, but it still wasn't happening. And, my career, I had to do many different things. But basically there comes a time in which you need to, secure yourself financially. And I was making money at the studio recording other bands and not so much playing with the band. The band was making no money. So there I am at 24 years old. It's like, wait, like I am pretty happy here at the studio. This is cool. Like I get to record whatever I want. I'm
Yeah.
not touring. And then in hindsight, like touring is not really that wouldn't have been the life for me. That was something, as a fantasy, as a kid growing up, it's like, oh man, that's what I wanted to do. But that was not the life for me. So right there, I had to redefine success as, just living, I was happy to be employed in the music business
Yeah.
and doing music every day.
Yeah.
That to me is what matters.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. It's funny the long, if you do this long enough, you kind of you take for granted that you make your living in the music industry, and then you think about how many people would kill to make their living in the music industry in any part of it. But like when you're wrapped up in it, you just forget sometimes. And yeah, it's pretty awesome to do what you love, even if it's not
Yes.
music. If you love painting
Yeah.
and you make a living at painting, that's awesome too. So many people don't get to chase their passion and pay their bills that way. But so last question. Um, what is your current biggest goal that you can share with us? And what's the next smallest step you're going to take to go towards it?
Well, man, this is a very general one. A lot of people share it, but it's my goal, just financial security, financial freedom. Just the thing, like, in this business, you have to make a lot of sacrifices with your time. And, like, you understand this, you have a family, my
Yeah.
family has to sacrifice a lot. So one of my biggest goals is just to attain that so I can have more time with my family and enjoy that part of life. That's one of the things that has a lot of value for me. And I guess the next step, is that's a difficult question because I'm always, every move that I make is towards that. But I guess, one of the things that I want to do for next year is start to get more with the social media and stuff. Like I am somebody, I think you found out when you went to my Instagram, I barely post anything. I do post, whenever there's a new version of Pro Tools or another Mac coming out.
Yeah.
But I've found out that, in this day and age, you have to be present in social media to kind of like get people to know you. If people don't know you, they don't they don't know if you exist, you lose an opportunity. So
Yeah.
that is something that I look forward to next year, just, getting more active with social media. And I guess one of the things that I'll be making content around is obviously what we've been talking about this today, Soundflow and Pro Tools. Specifically, I'm in the Soundflow store. I have a package that is free, and it has a few of the commands that I like. But I've been helping out in the forum for the last 4 years. I have a ton of scripts that are just laying there, just like doing nothing. I'm just gonna start cleaning them up and putting them in there. And every time I post one, I'll do a little piece of content around that, and I think that'll be fun for people to find and get familiar with the things that I like.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's just another step into developing a multifaceted career, I guess.
You kind of have to now. And the internet has become like, it's become how people build trust with each other, especially post-pandemic, where a lot of people decided that they could leave music hubs. Like, I don't have to be in Nashville anymore. I don't have to be in LA or whatever. And they go somewhere cheaper to live, and they still have maintained connections, and people still trust that they make music because they could see, they get to know this person on the internet. The social media is it's definitely it's an interesting double-edged sword, but it's
Yeah.
like so necessary. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'll be watching those videos because there's so many things I need to code that I will be I'll be looking for more tricks. But dude, this has been great. Please tell people where they can find you, where they can find anything you've done for Soundflow, or whatever. You just see a little spot to share whatever you want.
Well, I'll keep it super simple. Currently, my one thing that I have is my Instagram. That is the best place to find me. Whenever I have something to announce or anything, that's where I post it. So please find me as Raphael Sepulveda on Instagram. And if you're into Soundflow or want to check it out, go to soundflow.org and you can find my package on the store. Just type my name and you'll find it right away. Raphael Sepulveda Utilities. And that is it.
Awesome. Amazing. Dude, this was a good hang. One of these days, I'm going to make it to Nashville. You coming to NAMM this year?
Hell yeah, man.
Okay.
We're going to be down there.
I'll be there.
Absolutely.
I'll be there. Awesome. That's it for this week's episode of Progressions. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Be sure to check out all the links and resources mentioned in the episode down below in the video description or in your podcast show notes. If you're listening to this as an audio podcast, please leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It helps the show so much. And if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to drop any thoughts or questions about the episode down below. Let's keep the conversation going. For those of you watching, you'll be getting a link to another episode you might enjoy popping up somewhere right about now. And for those of you listening, check out the YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see y'all next time.